I might go get a fan though. It is warm. Good morning. See if we can get some people here. We'll wait a few minutes, get some people to show up. We've been gone for a couple of weeks now, so we're back and ready to roll. So once people show up, then we'll start our little puff quilt tutorial for the week. It's pretty exciting. So got some people there, getting there. Yay! It's nice. Thanks for coming back, you guys. It was weird to be gone for a week, and then we were here, and then we were gone for a week before that. So it's like been sort of in and out, and kind of weird to be like, oh, we're back. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So today we're working on a puff quilt. I'm Teresa Coates. I'm the National Educator for Shannon Fabrics, and today we're doing the puff quilt with Cuddle. So you've probably seen puff quilts before. They have a variety of names. So they are called puff quilts and biscuit quilts. Try to remember all the names. Cloud quilts. There's another one. I'll remember it, I promise. Sooner or later, it'll come and I'll be like, I'll just shout it out. That'll be it. But there are a few different names for them, and they were very, very popular. Like back in the 70s, I think they were super popular. And now they've kind of come back around, and so people do them a lot of times in cotton, but today we're going to do it all in Cuddle. So you could actually mix it. We're going to do it all in Cuddle 3, the one that we do today, but I wanted to show you the one that I did just a little sample just to see how it would work. So the one that we're doing today is going to be bigger, but this was just my little sample one, and I wanted to show you how this one worked. So this one I actually did with a print, a solid, and an embossed, okay, and a luxe. So I threw a luxe in there as well. The luxe is a little bit harder to deal with because it's got, you know, the extra fluff in the fabric. So the one that we're putting together today, to show you how easy it can be, we're just going to use all solids. Plus we're using our sweet strips. So this is how we're going to put it together, with a little bit of a border. And then we're going to finish it with a self-binding blanket binding, basically. So the back of it is just a self-binding blanket that comes around with the mitered corners, just like we do for those blankets. Super duper easy. You could choose to bind this as well. We'll talk about that more on when we get to that part of it. But just to let you know, there are some real choices in what you pick and choose to do with this, okay, and how you want to put it together. So today's we're putting together with some yardage and with our sweet strips. So sweet strips are something you may have seen before in shops. This is a new variation that we have that's 2 pieces together. We also have them with 5. And so the sweet strip package that I use today are these guys. I'm bringing them over. These are my cut ones. Okay, so I've cut some previously. We've got one more, and I'll show you how to cut. But all of these colors came together in a 5-pack. So you get like basically a matching combo. Let me show you another one. So this is, and these are coming out. So these are going to be in stores soon. Okay, so the single ones have been around for a while, but these new packages are coming soon. So this is one. Here's another one with my package is all falling apart, but I'm going to show you the pretty colors. Okay, so the packaging looks terrible, but the colors are beautiful. Okay, so there's a lot of them, and I think I have one more in here. Oh, yep, this one here. This one, my packaging is falling apart too. But see, it's got this beautiful flower version in here, and then it's got the coordinating colors. All right, so these packs are going to be great. You're going to start seeing them in shops in the next month or so. And you can find them, like I said, in these 5-packs or in 2-packs. Like here's another 2-pack that I have. Okay, we're going to use this one today as well. These are great. They're a great way to get started using Cuddle, because you can use them for strip quilts. So just regular old strip quilts, you just sew these guys together, you make yourself a blanket, or you can use them for different projects like this. So we're going to use this guy for today. I think I'm going to use the ladybug. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with that later. Okay, but that's what we're using. So I've cut these out, and then I have some yardage. It's a little, got some cuddle dust on it. That we're going to use for the backing of it. Okay, and then we're going to use some batting. And then I've got a whole bunch of these guys cut out. This is just quilting cotton. So I just used some Kona cotton that I had in my stash and cut it out. So the quilting cotton is cut in 4-inch squares, and I have as many as I was able to cut out of a yard, which I think was like 91. I need 88. Okay, these guys, I have 88 of these. All right, so these are 5-inch squares. So the one thing that's kind of weird about the puff quilt is that the squares don't match, okay? And that's how we get it to actually do the puff, is that if you look here, you can see the little pleats that are in each top square, because this top square is 5 inches and the bottom square that it's sewn to is 4. So we add these little pleats on all the side, okay? And that's what makes it have the area that it can puff up like that. All right, so the cotton squares are cut 4 inches, the cuddle squares are cut 5 inches, okay? Before we come back tomorrow, I have to sew all of those guys. So wish me luck, okay? Oh, we'll talk about this. Don't let me forget about the cuddle camp, okay? At the end, we'll talk about that. Okay, so the way that these work, I've got a whole bunch of these done. So I've cut them into the little squares. I have cuddle dust everywhere. And then what you do is you just fold it. Let's see if I have my pen, I'll show you on a fresh one. So I want to get all the marks on it is what I want to do. So you have 2 options in that you can fold it in half and you can finger press it, okay, so that I have a little mark there. And I can fold it again and I can get those little marks. Okay, I could use that little like Violet Craft roller thing if I wanted to. I can finger press it and those will show up really nicely. So I could leave them like this, or I could mark them with the pin. What I tend to do is well, I'll do it on this one. I have to get a new one because these, I tend not to be able to see them as quickly and easily as I want to, the little press marks. So I think it's kind of a matter of personal preference and which works best for you. So what I do is I fold it into quarters, and then I just have my water soluble pen here, and I just stick it right in here, and I do a little mark and a mark. Okay, so I do it right inside the fold because it's really easy to do. And then I'm going to switch it over here, and I'm going to do it on the fold there, and then I'll pinch it and do it on the fold out here. Okay, so then when I do that, the weird thing is your marks don't all end up on the same side, but it's okay. Okay, so I've got my marks on my quarters on all the sides. Okay, so I've done that with a bunch of them already. So I sat this morning and I just marked a bunch of squares. Okay, so for me it's easier to see the pen marks, and this is just the Clover water erasable one. The Marks Be Gone from Dritz works really well too. A water soluble will work really well. And then it doesn't really matter if I get it bigger than my 1/4 inch seam allowance, because if it leaks out in here, it'll be fine when I wash it. Also, it's going to be in the back, so it doesn't matter. So I mark them all first. So I cut my 4-inch squares, mark them, cut my 5-inch squares, and then we sew them together. So the trick with the puff quilt is that it has to have this stuff inside of it, right? So the way to get them to work together, I'm trying to figure out which order to explain it to you guys. The way that it works is that you have to create these little pleats in here. When I cut my strip, and we'll do that next, when I cut my strip wasn't exactly 10 inches. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it'll be a little bit over 10 inches. Sometimes it'll be slightly under 10 inches. It's just the way it happens. It's people cutting these strips. And so accuracy, like perfection, is not always achievable. But the great thing about this project is even if your strip is 9 3/4 or 10 1/2, it doesn't really matter. All you're going to do is cut your strip in half. Because then that square, so if this square isn't exactly 5 1/2 inch or 5 inches, it's fine because it's going to come down to a 4-inch square. I'm going to make it fit that 4-inch square no matter what size this is. Okay, so the accuracy of this one isn't quite as important as the accuracy of this one. These need to be exactly 4 inches, which is going to be easy to do. Okay. There was something else that I thought of when I was talking about that. Dang it. What was it? The quilts and cotton, just use something in your stash that you don't like anymore. I just had a solid and that was easy enough. I have a lot of prints, so I didn't want to use a print because it's never going to be seen again, ever. So you could use the ugliest thing that you have and nobody will ever care. Okay, so, I remember. So one of the things that you want to do with the quilt is you want to make sure that your nap is all going in the same direction. So that when you pet your quilt, which that one, it won't do it if I do that because I didn't pay any attention to it. But the top of your little puffs, it'll make a difference if your nap isn't going the same direction, especially if you're using a solid cuddle. Okay, the solid cuddles, really you can tell the difference if I push the nap this way or that way. So I'll show you, the white isn't quite as visible, so I'll show you on one of these grays. Okay, so you can see it if I pet pet the fabric this direction, it's nice and smooth, right? Okay, so nice. If I push it this way, it does that. Okay, so when I have my quilt, I need to make sure that all of my puffs are going in the same direction so that I don't get ones that do funky things like that in the middle of it. Okay, so we're going to pay special attention to that when we're making it with the solids. If you're making it with Luxe or a print, you won't be able to see this. Okay, but on the Cuddle 3, you'll totally be able to see those little zebra lines is what we call them. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. So one of the things that I did with my whites when I was sitting here this morning is I put them all in the same direction. Okay, so they're all coming this way. If I do this, you can sort of see them ruffle up the wrong way. So they're all in this direction for me. So this way, if I'm looking at them, it's top to bottom for me. Okay, so the way that I want to sew them is I want to sew them so that I leave this side open. So this is top to bottom. I'm going to leave the right side open. All right, so when I'm putting them together, I'm going to keep that in mind. Okay, so let me show you how I put them together. So let me find the nap on this guy. So this is top to bottom. Make sure I've got it going the same way. Okay, so I've got my square. Are we doing okay? Sorry, I didn't even ask. You guys doing all right out there? Okay, good. Whew. I just start talking.
Doing a giveaway?
Oh, yeah. We're going to do a giveaway for these strips, and the Fairfield gave us batting, so we'll give you some batting for it, and yeah, we'll give you stuff to make this. So we're going to do this for the next couple of days, and we'll give away a few packages of those.
So leave your city and state.
City, state, tell me your favorite quilt shop, all of that good stuff. I love all of that info. Okay. So what I do is I start, so this is my top to bottom. This is my right edge like I was talking about. I've put the two pieces together. Okay, so you can see this is much, much longer. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. All right, so I'm going to match one corner and then the other corner. And then I'm going to stick a pin in the middle as well, right where I put my little line, where I drew my line. Okay, I'm going to stick a pin here. So what this does is gives me this whole lot of flap right here, which obviously I have to do something with. So what I do is I push it back over here, and then I repin. Okay, so now I've got my pleat in here. The thing that I realized from sewing a bunch of these is I want to pin my pleat at this edge of the fold. Okay, oh, I forgot to show you guys how to cut it. We're going to back up. Sorry, I knew there was something else in there that I was going to do. So I want to get that pleat right on the fold so that when I sew over this, it doesn't catch it. Okay, so what I found is if I sew it over here, it wants to push this up. And I'll show you what I mean when we're working with it. Okay, I'm going to pin this whole thing and then we'll go backwards and I'll show you how to cut it. Sorry, guys, I'm out of practice. I haven't done this for 2 whole weeks. Doing classes instead. Okay. All right, so now I got this pin. I'm going to do the same thing. I just work this up, kind of give it a little bit of a tug, make it flat. And you can imagine this is probably going to work up just a little bit because it's Cuddle sewing on cotton. We'll deal with that when we get there. I promise it's not a biggie. Okay. And these are my clover flower head pins, so if you watch, you know these are the ones that I love, but they are super sharp, super long, and work really well for this. Okay, so I've got that pin, do the same thing, and I'm going to push this over. So we were talking about if your square isn't exactly 5 inches, the only thing that changes is the amount of pleat you have there. So if my square were 1/4 of an inch off even, then this little pleat would be 1/8 of an inch smaller on either side of that. So it'd be a little bit less of a pleat, okay? Yeah, a little bit less of a pleat. So no big deal if your squares are not perfect, okay? It's going to look like this. Now, sorry, hold on. We're going to go backward. That's what happens. I tell you, I was out of practice. Okay, I'm going to move all of my squares over here so I don't knock them over. I'm going to put that aside and put these aside. Okay, so I can keep all of my stuff somewhat organized. It's hard. Okay, so I wanted to show you because this is one of those things, like these strips are great and you can get these in Third yard cuts, if you can't find the strips, or the strips aren't just in the colors that you like, you can buy third yard cuts and then cut them. You can actually do this in any size that you want. So we're using the 10-inch strip, cutting it into 5-inch strips and putting it on 4-inch squares. But if you wanted to do 6-inch squares of Cuddle and put it on 5-inch squares of cotton, because you have a bunch of charm squares that you want to use, you could totally do that. You would just need to buy like third yard cuts. You could do it any size. So you could do the much larger. I wouldn't do them much smaller. You could if you were, glutton for punishment. But otherwise, I would just do the bigger. It'll be easier. Also, did my mother show up yet?
I've not seen her come through. That doesn't mean she's
We're
not there.
we're hoping my mom shows up today.
Because
So if my mom is there, she needs to raise her hand. Because you might notice, did you show the little picture back there?
I did.
Okay. It's my mom's birthday today. So I'm hoping that she'll show up and we can wish her happy birthday. Yeah. So it's her fault I'm here. If she hadn't have taught me how to sew when I was a kid, I wouldn't be here. So thanks, Mom. Hey, so what I've done here is I have taken my strip, turned it so that it was right side up, and then I'm folding it in thirds. Okay, so technically we would like to fold it in half better. All right, that's a better way of doing it because the Cuddle likes to grip itself, so it'll hold together really nicely when it's cuddle to cuddle. Okay, it's sort of like the naps grab each other and they hold, which makes it really easy to cut. Unfortunately, my ruler is not 30 inches long here, so and I don't have my big long one for here up here. So and you probably have a 24-inch one as well. So the way that I do it with the 24-inch ruler is that I will just fold it in thirds. So I want it to fit underneath my ruler. So I'm just going to fold it. I'm going to get these to grab each other. Okay. And then I'm going to fold this back. All right. And if I do that, it works pretty well. You don't want to put backing to backing because the backings will slide on each other a lot. Okay, so putting right side to right side is best, but in this way we've done it in thirds and it works out just fine. Okay, so I'm not going to cut this, but I'll show you what I would do. Is that I would just lay this. So I'm going to move this up so you can see this a little bit better. So I'm going to take my 5-inch line on my ruler and I'm just going to line it right up with the raw edge. See if I can. Is it less shine that way?
No, I didn't shine on other way right now.
Okay, good.
That's my angle.
Okay, good. It's hard to sort of manage that. So I would just put it right along this edge. First thing I want to do is I want to measure it. Okay, so how wide is this? You can see it's just the tiniest 1/8 of an inch shy of 10 inches. Okay.
Come right down on that. There we go.
Okay, it's just the tiniest bit shy. Doesn't matter. I'm going to cut it in half. Okay, so we're going to do one that's 5 inches and one that will be 4 3/4 inches. All right, that makes 0 difference in the end. All right, so I want you to rest assured that if your strip isn't 10 inches exactly, you're fine. And if it's a little bit more than 10 inches, please don't straighten it up and make it all 10 inches. Just cut it in half. Okay, the biggest thing is to make sure that it's straight. So what I like to do is I like to put the fold on one of my lines here, get this to come down, make sure that it's about even here, and then whack it off. Sometimes you will end up with a strip that isn't perfectly straight. This one has a little bit of a dip right here, and I'm just going to ignore it. It'll be fine, okay? The way that Cuddle works, it's so forgiving for so many different things. So if it's not exactly perfectly straight, you're all right. It's all going to sort of hide in your seam allowances anyway. It's totally fine. Okay, so I would just cut this off and then I would cut those into 5-inch squares. All right, does that make sense? So if you have any questions, ask. But the trick with this really is just folding it into thirds so that you can then cut it easily. Cutting it in half, if I do it, just fold it in half and then cut it. If you want to do it this way, you totally can. And what I do is I will line it up on this edge, cut, slide it up a little bit, and then cut again. Okay, so you can do it just 2 layers that way. If you were doing this with Luxe Cuddle, you would want to cut it 1 layer at a time and mark all of your lines first because it will just shimmy. So Luxe Cuddle is different in that if we lay it right sides together, it doesn't grab each other, it just slides more. So you have more layer between your backings and it has a lot more shimmy. Okay, So with the Cuddle 3 only, you want to lay it together. If you're using Luxe Cuddle, one layer at a time, okay? All right, does that make sense? If anybody has any questions, please pop up there and I will be happy to answer them.
What tool did you use to cut with?
I just used my rotary cutter. So I just used just a regular old rotary cutter because I was using Cuddle 3. And Cuddle 3 is pretty not messy compared to Luxe Cuddle. It's not very messy. And so I just cut it with the rotary cutter. I vacuum the edge. I give it a good shake. And then I work with it. This would be a great project that you could do all of your cutting, put it into a basket or a box of some sort, take it to your dryer, throw it in there with the wet washcloth, let it tumble around, no heat for a few minutes, and it will knock off the cuddle dust. This is a great time to use that because in the end I have 88 squares of cuddle that all have 4 sides that can shed. It's a lot of cuddle dust that can come off of there. So this would be a great time to do that in your dryer because it's all going to end up in your lint trap and you just pull it out, throw it away. Okay, super duper easy. If you're doing it with Luxe Cuddle, I would do that same dryer trick, but make sure that you're drawing the lines on the back and then cutting it with either the little scissors, the blade. You can do it with the rotary cutter. This is the blade that I use a lot for the Luxe Cuddle. You could do it with a rotary cutter, but what happens with the rotary cutters, you just have a lot more mess. Okay, so make sure that you're treating it appropriately. All right, so throw it in your dryer, wet washcloth. It'll get rid of all of the mess, and then it's much easier to work with. Okay, was that all the questions there?
So far, so good.
Okay, all right. So now we've come back. We'll come back to here. Okay, you remember how I pinned this? My little pleats. Okay. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you two. I'm going to sew 2 of them in a row, and I'm going to show you the different ways. So one of the things that I saw when I was researching how different people did it is that is that a lot of people would say to chain piece it. So you would just like put the one side together and then do that square and then put another square and do that side and do another side. So you would chain piece all the right sides, all the bottoms, all the left sides together. And for me working with the Cuddle, I tried that a few of them and I didn't like it as much. So you can absolutely try it and it may be your cup of tea, but it wasn't mine. So I like to do mine each individually. Part of it was keeping the nap in check and making sure that the nap was going the direction I wanted it to. And it was easier for me if I did it individually rather than chain piecing. Okay. But I will show you that you don't have to necessarily pin the entire thing before you start going. Okay. So I'm going to pin this first one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pin one corner, pin the other corner, pin it in between. It's like the same thing every time, you guys. Like there's certain techniques that work. This would be one of them. Okay. And the way that I do it is that my pleat is always going to start, it's going to be flat here, the bubble over here. Okay. Then I push it back. Okay. Work it into place, repin it. Okay. If you have a little bit of trouble holding that in place and then repinning it, you could always use another pin and then take that original pin out. Okay. So my pleat actually ends up to the left, to this side of my center. Okay. So here's my center. My pleat ends up over there. Okay. What happens when I do this is it ends up nesting the seams really well. Okay. That was like a little side benefit.
Which way is that going to get sewn? Top to bottom?
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Got
yep,
it.
this direction, okay? So I'm going to sew this, and then while it's in the machine, I'll pin the next row. So you can do it with pinning the whole thing or one side at a time, all right? So are you ready to come around, Hawk? Let's do this. Okay. So I am, as always, oh look, here's my little needle case. Using the Schmetz 9014 stretch needles. I've got Mettler thread in here today. Okay, so polyester thread is really important. You'll want to have a polyester thread, a 9014 stretch needle, and I will be using I'm going to pop this up to a 3-stitch length. All right.
Straight stitch.
It's just a straight stitch. We're going to use a zigzag later, and I'll explain that a little bit. Oh, no, wait. This is the part we do use a zigzag. Sorry. I was like, wait. I did the opposite. So zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. But what I do is normally when we're doing zigzag stuff, I do a 3.5. And this time I'm going to shorten, or a 5 and a 5. And this time we're going to do a 3.5. Okay, so this zigzag is a little bit narrower. So normally, like when we're doing the top stitching on everything, I do this big wide one, right? But today we're going to do it smaller. because I'm going to use this to stitch together. So it's a 5mm wide stitch, which is just shy of 1/4 of an inch. So what I'm doing is basically kind of gluing down the entire side. So the reason, if I do a straight stitch, what happens is this like becomes little lips, and I don't want that to happen. And I'll show you that one too, so you guys can see why I chose to do the zigzag, okay? Because that is a little, that's a Teresa technique there, okay? All right, so I just wanted to get that started. So what I'm doing is just a zigzag all along here, okay? And I'm just going to push my pin so I can see here. I have to find my stiletto. I brought it up. There it is. Okay, so once I let that pin out, it's going to sort of want to move. So this is when your stiletto is super handy, because I'm just going to hold that down and keep it moving toward there. And it's going to let it kind of just, you know, suck it in at some point, and it will go. Okay, so we're just going to evenly feed it along the way. All of that, if you have some sort of a weird little thing that happens, it's fine because it's in your seam allowance. Okay, do one more stitch. I'm going to turn. Okay. Turn my handle over here so I can make my needle go down in the right place. Okay, because what I'm trying to do is get it so that my stitch is basically off the edge. Okay, so this is sort of what we're looking for, is it's flattening down that edge. So now I can take this and I can repin at my center. Okay, and then I pin here. So you can totally do this all in the machine. Okay. Push that up with my stiletto. Let it catch and make sure that this all feeds in nicely. Oh, I remember too, Hawk, we're supposed to get a fire alarm testing today. So you guys, if a fire alarm goes off, it's not really a fire in our house. I forgot about that. I was going to warn you guys just in case. Just in case. Okay, this stuff happens sometimes. We don't plan it. It's kind of like the IKEA delivery of the new studio. Right. Right in the middle of it all. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to find my little, there's my mark. Okay. I pin it. Okay, and then I'll feed this back. So for me, you can see this takes a little bit longer. But people who really don't like pinning, this might be the thing to do. I don't mind pinning at all, as you might have noticed.
So both sides of this zigzag are coming down in the fabric, right?
They are. I don't really need to get it completely off the side. I just need it to be really close. So I don't want to go too far in, because the 5mm stitch length is just shy of 1/4 of an inch. So like this one, I came in just a little bit, it'll be fine. But what happens is when I do my 1/4 inch seam, that will catch right along that edge basically. Okay, so on this one, I wasn't super duper careful about it, and I'm trying to see if there's any like little zigzags showing up. Maybe, but it seems like it was okay, that it worked out all right. And I did it the same way. And basically, the reason I did that is to prevent that flipping up. So I'm going to show you, so I showed you how to do it one side at a time. Now I'm going to do it the one that I pinned the entire time, or entire way. Okay, I find this easier to control and manage. Okay, I didn't, you'll notice I don't backstitch either, just because these are going to hold for just a little bit, and then they're going to get stitched down later. Okay, this is just to hold it for now. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting that fed in fairly well. If it comes up a little off the end, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to rotate. Just go around here again. Okay. Sort of use my pin to guide it under there, and then use the stiletto to keep it fairly even. Okay, do the same thing here. And come down this side. Okay, so I find it's just faster for me. I'd rather take the time to pin it before I get started than to pin it as I go. But it really is totally just personal preference. All right. Okay.
So this is a little bit of a subjective question, but how heavy is this finished quilt?
I don't know that it's any heavier than a normal cuddle quilt. Like it's going to be a little bit, but
one layer of cotton heavier.
yeah, I mean there's no layer of cuddle on the back of it, so I don't think it's. I mean it's heavier than a regular cotton quilt, but not heavier than a cuddle quilt.
Got it. Jumping
Yeah.
ahead, I suppose you could put weighted beads in these.
You absolutely could. Yep, I would probably put them in little sacks before I stuck them in there if you wanted to make it extra heavy. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this one, I'm going to show you what happens when we just do it with a straight stitch. Okay, because I did do this a little bit funky and I didn't see anywhere else tell me that I should do it with the zigzag. So this was just something I decided after I sewed it this way. So I'll show you why I changed my mind. Okay, and like I said, a lot of the things that I try to show you guys is really, it's what I've just found that has worked best for me. It's not necessarily the only way of doing it. In fact, it's rarely the only way of doing it. Okay, so I've got that. I'm gonna do my pins. Okay. Do another corner. Then my middles. Okay, so this is another reason that I like marking the pins, so or the lines. So even though that took me a little bit of time to do that, it's much faster for me to look and find that than it is for me to find the crease in it. So yeah, that's why I like the pen marking better. Okay, and we're doing 3 sides. You remember that, top, bottom, and then the left side. Okay, and we're leaving one side open every time. If you forget to leave that side open, you're gonna have to take it out. There's no fixing that besides taking it out, which isn't a big deal. Remember, you can use your blade, slice those stitches out. But it is easier if you just don't sew it shut. Don't do it. Okay, so I'm here. You can see this little pleat right here. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this pleat is smaller than this pleat. Okay, so this one is a little bit bigger. This one's a little bit smaller. Okay, so that's where this one ends. And it's because my squares weren't perfectly square. Okay, in the end, you'll have no idea which one that was, that it wasn't perfectly even pleats. All right, just this weird little thing in the middle. All right, so now let's sew this. And I'll show you how it does it with the straight stitch. So I'm going to put it on a regular straight stitch, and I'm going to do a 3 length on this, okay, at the 1/4 of an inch. Okay, make sure we've got all that, get that tucked under, get my pin out. Okay, so I'm sewing it to the 1/4 inch, so I could, follow this line later, make it easy on myself, I guess. Okay, and you can see it always wants to kind of untuck right there, so I just have to keep it where I want it to be. All right, get up to the corner. And it's much easier to eyeball a pivot on the straight stitch. Get that in there. Okay, so it's a little bit faster. I can see that, but what I didn't like so much was this open edge. So this ended up giving me like fluff here, that this is thicker now, that all of this is sort of apart. And when it's zigzagged, it just becomes flatter and it's easier for me to deal with. Okay, so either one totally works. Here's the straight stitch, here's the zigzag. I just found that holding this down all the way across helped me. All right. The thing that makes it a little bit easier too, and why we want to do the pleats the same way all the way around. So you saw like I pulled it up, I pulled it up, I pulled it up. When we end up stitching these together, they're going to be stitched together. This one will get some stuffing and then be this way, and then they end up nesting. Ta-da! Okay, this one's not in the right place. But. So is that the right way? Yep. Hold on guys, I promise I'll get there. Okay, these are going to end up nesting, is what happens. Okay, so if I show you on 2 of them that I zigzagged, they end up coming together like this. Okay, so you can see the pleat goes this way and the pleat goes that way. And then they just come together and nest right there and are already nice and flat. Okay, so then I get those middles to match, and then I'll sew these over. We'll talk about sewing them together tomorrow. Okay, so what you're gonna do, I guess, wow, that's so fast. We can keep moving. Okay, let's do it. We're gonna keep sewing some. So the thing that you're gonna do is we're gonna sew a bunch of these together. I'm gonna sew some other ones so you can see different colors. Okay, and I'm gonna sew a ton of these together, and then after we've sewn them, we're gonna arrange them. Arranging them is really, really up to you. So I'm gonna have to figure it out by myself. Okay, so let's sew some of these. But you're gonna be able to arrange it anyway. You will have more squares than you could do as a square. Okay, so if we wanna do it, we're gonna do it, 9 by 9. So we get 81 squares. So you can do it, you'll have enough to do 10 by 8 as well. But you want it, 9 by 9 will work really well and give you a nice square. Okay, it's very flexible to do all sorts of different things. Okay, so I'm just gonna do more of these. We have the polyfill that we're gonna use for these too. I did a little bit of testing with it, and if you have just regular polyfill, I don't feel like it makes much difference to use the nicer polyfill. So like royal silk is the one that I really prefer for stuffed animals and that sort of thing. And I found that it didn't really make much difference. So yeah, you could totally use the regular polyfill. And then those poly pellets, that's a great idea. Did somebody suggest that? Or did you come up with that?
That was me.
That was a good one. Because I'm thinking I might try that. I mean,
well, the question was how heavy would the quilt be, and then that immediately to me implied weighted.
Let's make it heavier. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which would totally work. So yeah, I might try that and see. Because yeah, I know that weighted blankets are really important for a lot of people, and figuring out ways to do it while it's still cute is helpful. Okay. So we come along this side. Okay, I'm just going to keep doing these. All right, so let's go sew this. I'm going to just sew them one at a time. All right, guys, ask me questions.
Okay, I have a question. Somebody asked, why are you running the pleat through the machine that way? If you were running it, if you created the pleat the opposite direction, wouldn't that flow through the machine easier?
Yes, but what I found was it ran through easier, but it also, only because it was pushing it forward more. See if I can explain it better. So because it was already moving this way, it was really easy for it to keep moving this way, and then I got more of a pouch down here. So it actually was sort of counter active to what I was trying to do, which is to get it to feed in and then stay flat. It wanted to actually just keep shoving this forward, and I got a bigger pleat down here because this was already coming this way. I don't know if that makes sense. Did that sort of make sense? You can absolutely try it, but that's what I found, because I did do it that way first, and then I realized it was just pushing it, and I ended up fighting it more than I wanted to. And I really don't like fighting the fabric as much as I'm like, it's really forgiving. Sometimes I have to fight it, and I don't like to. Okay. So if I sort of reposition the foot, often that helps, and then just keeping a stiletto here. Okay. If it doesn't turn out perfectly along these edges, like I said, it's fine because it all just hides in there. Okay. You want to make sure and get those pins out. Okay. We're just going to work our way around. So I'm going to do 81 of these guys today. And then we're going to arrange it. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to arrange it in rows of colors. So it'll go from black to dark gray to light gray to white in sort of stripes across here. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So we'll see, because I will have to have sewn some together to show you guys what we're going to do. But you can do this with all sorts of things. So in this one, we're using 5 strips, so 5 different colors. It's 4 in the body of it, and then we're doing another one that we're using for the side. And I'm actually going to mess with it just a little bit, of course, because that's what I do. But you can make this out of all sorts of different prints. If you wanted to make a larger one, you could make larger squares. You could add more colors. You could definitely add, I mean, you could do twice this many colors and it would be really lovely. And if you did them in larger squares, it'd be a pretty quick project. It's super interesting too. We asked on that I Love Cuddle group that we have. So if you're not a member there, you can join, and it's pretty fun because people post all sorts of stuff. But we asked on there, what do you call it and where are you from? And it was kind of interesting because the names varied so much. For what this is a puff quilt, a biscuit quilt. Oh, a bubble quilt. See, I told you I'd come up with it, you guys. Bubble quilt. That's the other one. That it has all of these different names. And I thought it might be more regional than it actually was. But I think it's just because we all move all over the place. So it could be that you learned it was a bubble quilt because your grandma lived in Kansas. That's why they called it a bubble quilt. But then now you live in California, but you call it a bubble quilt because that's what your grandma was from. So it's kind of funny because I think that it really is pretty regional. Biscuit was definitely south. I think that's where that mostly came from. There's like some Alabamas and Mississippis. And that's probably because they make the best biscuits in the south.
I've heard that.
I think it's true. Since I'm gluten-free, I haven't eaten any biscuits down there, but... But the word is, now I'm going to tell people, yeah, leave your best gluten-free biscuit recipe if anybody has them. Okay, I'm going to just keep sewing around here. We're going to do another one. Okay. So you can see I'm just going to force it and make it go where I want it to go.
Oh, somebody suggested this might be a scrap buster.
Oh, it would be a great scrap buster. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And it could be just like the funnest, craziest quilt. And if you do it with like a variety of the textures, like on the one that I did, the little one I did with the embossed and with the luxe, I was thinking like with the dimples, it'd be super great. The dimples are, you know, a little stretchier, so be more careful when you're sewing with them, but the texture of that would be super fun. And all the different colors, yeah, totally great scrap buster. And you could make that Sweet 16 pillow that we have with the extras that you have, okay? All right, so we're gonna do these and we'll talk about what's coming up too. So you guys don't want to just watch me sew all day. So what we're going to do is we're going to arrange all of these guys. Okay, so you're going to sew all of your squares. I only have a few of them here, so I'm going to show you just a little bit. Okay. And we're going to arrange these. So tomorrow when we're back, so we'll be back in the morning, and I'll have sewn these together and we'll figure out exactly how we're going to do it. But we're going to arrange them first. So you can see, like with this one, what I'm thinking is I want to do it sort of like this. Okay, and I will have more squares here. So it's going to go across in rows, and then I'll have like my darker one here. My black will be down, like, so I'll do another row. Does that make sense? So I can like play with it. You can totally mix it up. You could make it just totally a checkerboard, which would be fun. You could do it with 2 colors. You could do it with 12 colors. Like, it really doesn't matter. It has so much flexibility in this pattern to do whatever you want. Once we get the layout figured out, then we're going to stuff them and sew them together. So today I'm going to work on sewing all of these guys. I hope that some of you will join me and make some little puff quilt too. Was there a question?
Yeah, a quick question about washing and stuff for all this the Cuddle fabric.
For Cuddle fabric in general, it's totally machine washable. So Cuddle and Luxe Cuddle are machine washable. We talk a lot about the difference between Luxe Cuddle and faux fur, and I'll just mention it briefly here, is that Cuddle is, I'm going to show you a couple of different Luxe Cuddles, okay, because we're doing it. So this is a Luxe Cuddle as well, which is a crazy one. Okay, this is a Luxe Cuddle. The Cuddles are machine washable, and that's what makes the biggest difference with using our fabrics versus using like a faux fur. Okay, so Cuddle is great, and it is all machine washable. So the thing that you want to remember is that you want to wash it in cold water. Okay, wash it in cold water with a what's the right word? A detergent that doesn't have a lot of extras in it. So you don't want any sort of a softener in your laundry detergent, nor do you want to use a liquid fabric softener at all with the fabric, okay? It's super duper soft. So wash it in cold, just a basic detergent, and then you'll throw it in the dryer. So when we get to the point that we're quilting it, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But on this one, you can see I quilted just this one little line because I wanted to see how it was going to work. All right. Because I've got batting in here, I would want to actually quilt this a little bit more to hold the batting together. Okay. Because that's gonna cause issues too. This quilt, I used a polyester batting in it. So that's totally machine washable as well. The Cuddle is machine washable. We're going to throw it in the dryer. After you've washed it, throw it in the dryer for a little bit, maybe 20 minutes. Take it out before it's completely dry, let it line dry, and then when it's finished drying, throw it in your dryer and let it toss around for a little bit, and it'll sort of fluff it up. We found that's especially important with the longer napped different Luxe Cuddles. So you can absolutely dry it in the dryer. The biggest thing is when people over dry it. So you don't want it to let it stay in your dryer for 60 minutes when it's already been dry for 10. Make sure that you take it out before it gets, over dried. All right. But totally machine washable. Absolutely. And if you quilt it down in the middle, it's going to be no problem with it coming like apart or anything. The kind of cool thing about the way this is put together is that these are secured and then they're secured together. So your batting is never going to, or your fluffing is never going to come out either there. Your, what is it called? Not batting. Stuffing. Your stuffing is never going to come out. So we'll talk a little bit more when we're stuffing them tomorrow. I've got, actually, I'll just show you because I made little samples. Okay, so I did, can you look in there? Okay, so this one is polyfill, just regular polyfill. This is royal silk. They're about the same hand size. Okay, so I tried to get similar size stuffing pieces. Okay. So it's about the same size. This one doesn't squish down quite as hard as this one. I can get it to squish down much more. Okay. So what I was testing is to see how these would feel in there basically. My gut says that the polyfill will not spread out as much, but that might be perfectly fine. I don't actually think it'll be a big deal at all. Okay. So you can see there's not much difference in how they look. Does one seem higher than the other? Can you see? This one seems a little bit puffier. So I was thinking it might be. I know that they will squish down differently, so this one I can squish a lot more than I can squish here. Okay? Interesting to me, like just basically, it's two different kinds of polyfill. You'd think there wouldn't be that big of a difference, but there can be. Okay, so it really is, personal preference on this as well. This will be a lot squishier. They're both going to wash up just fine. Okay, and even though sometimes the polyfill will get a little clumpy when it's been washed, like if you were to have it in pillows or anything like that, it'll get a little clumpy. In this, I don't think it matters at all because it's such a small amount of stuffing that we're using in there that it's perfectly fine. Okay, so tomorrow we'll have a bunch of these sewn. I will have stuffed some, but that's how we're going to do it. And then we'll sew them together, and we'll do them the exact same way, where you'll get a little pleat in here, and then we sew them down. And these become your little biscuits, which I think is hilarious. Okay, so this is the royal silk. Can you see that okay? Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Okay, and then this is the polyfill, which you've probably seen a million times, because it's super common, super easy to find this stuff. This stuff is a little bit harder. So if you can't find it, this polyfill will work just fine. Okay, don't worry about that one. Some of them, the stuffed animals, like I said, I really prefer this to it just to keep them softer, but this will be just fine. Okay, so again, happy birthday to my mom. Okay, the drawing is done by my daughter. She's an illustrator, and so she made a little picture of me and my mom from when we were out in Missouri a couple of years ago, I think, or a year and a half ago. I have to say that she has not only supported me, but she shows up at different events that I'm at, which is super awesome. And yeah, it's pretty great. So happy birthday, Mom. The other thing we wanted to talk about is next week. So tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to work more on the quilt, and then we'll do the same thing on Thursday. Next week we're going to work on that robe that everybody's been asking about. So that's been a common request on that I Love Cuddle page. So we're going to do a robe next week, and we're going to do it, I think I'm going to sew it out of Luxe Cuddle for you here, but I'm also going to show you how you can make it out of terry and how you can make it out of embrace. Okay, so the same pattern will work for all of those. If you want to get a head start on getting your pattern so you could sew along with me, let me grab it for you and show you. It is this pattern. You get that without too much glare? So it's this pattern, it's the Indigo Junction pattern. Classic kimono, is that what it's called? Yeah, so the classic kimono robe pattern. Super easy, and we're going to do this out of all 3 substrates. So we're going to do it out of a Luxe Cuddle, a Embrace, which is the double gauze, and a terry cloth. Okay, so that's going to be fun. That's what we're doing next week. The week after that, we're really excited about, because we've been asked a few times to do some, because Cuddle is so great for kids. All of you can sew for your grands or for your children. But this time we're going to focus on children actually sewing. So we got some good children's patterns. So we're working with Latifa Safir from Quilt Cadets. And we're going to be working with her patterns that week. So we're going to do 3 of them. This is one of them we're going to do. And we're going to do mood pillows, the travel pillow, and the brekkie bag. Oh, I have it. Hold on. Okay. This little guy. So we're going to show you how to do all of these things. So these are not only just appropriate for kids to do, because that's what the patterns are written for children, but they're also going to be great for you to do. So I would suggest that you find a little one to sew, even virtually with, and we'll make some little cuddle projects. So that'll be in 2 weeks. It's the last week of July. And so get ready for that one. That'll be great. And so we'll send out some more emails about it. If you're not on our newsletter, you should get on that so that you can get more information about when we do the Cuddle Camp. Let me see if there was anything else.
There's a winner.
There's a winner. Good,
Yeah,
good. Okay.
There's a winner.
There is. All right. So the winner is, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Now I'm going to have to get my glasses on. Let me see if I can figure it out. She's going to be like, that's not right, sweetie. Aridna, M of Cooper's Cove, Texas. Sorry, people have names that I haven't seen before. Sorry. I'm sorry if I just butchered it. But you're the winner, and Ellen will get a hold of you and make sure that you know that what you've won. So what you'll get is a 5-pack of the cuddle strips. You'll get the batting, you'll get the backing fabric, and we'll have the pattern available for you. So if you want to download the pattern, it's basically me just writing out what I did, and it's available on our blog post. So I'm sure that she linked to that as well, and you can download the pattern, and we'll probably, you know, make some changes as we go. So make sure that you watch as we go through the whole process. And then if you have any questions, you can always reach out via the I Love Cuddle page. So make sure that you're following us on Shannon Fabrics. You can like us on Instagram. We'll post the video there. We'll later post it on YouTube, and you can always comment on there as well. I'm happy to answer any questions. So if you have anything and you want to know about for tomorrow, putting it together, arranging it, all of that good stuff, you can leave it in the comments here, and I will answer it tomorrow. Is that it? Are we good?
We're good. Okay,
I'm trying to remember all the things that I wanted to tell you. We didn't have any fire alarm that went off, which is great. It's my mom's birthday, which is awesome.
Tomorrow we'll have guys pounding around on the roof.
Tomorrow we're getting air conditioning in, so we'll probably have, people will be pounding around on the roof. It's a fun week. It's a fun week to be here, guys. So, but you know, on Thursday I won't have a shine because it's so warm in here. So, looking forward to it all. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to get sewing on these squares because I have just a few to sew together before tomorrow morning. So join us then, and we'll have this all figured out. We'll work on the arrangement. We'll start sewing it together, and I'll show you how we do that. All right. Thanks so much. Happy sewing.